Please welcome to the floor, Aberfeldy District JC.
Good afternoon, judges, ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome to Inverness, the Highland capital, for today's Young Farmers National Speechmaking Finals. I'm feeling quite hot under the collar today. Could that be from the Barbie bombs I was drinking last night? Or is there something else at play here? That is exactly what this team will be looking at today. As Aberfeldy discusses the topic, farmers should reduce livestock numbers to help with the global warming crisis. Before we delve into that, allow me to introduce my panel. Firstly, to my right, we have our proposer today, Mr. Nick Hutchin.
Good afternoon.
Nick is 29 and works in operational technology at SSE. Outside of work, Nick is a keen rugby player for the Aberfeldy Boars, so I am excited to see how he tackles today's question. To my near left, we have our opposer, Miss Chloe Meekie.
Good afternoon.
Chloe is 25 and works as a farmer at the family farm Tom Hoolan, outside Pitlochry. Chloe has a first-class honours degree in agriculture from SRUC, so I'm sure she will bring a wealth of knowledge to today's discussion. Lastly, to my far right, we have our arbiter, Miss Joanna MacLeod.
Good afternoon.
I will introduce her more fully later on. So, I'll hand over to Nick for his opening argument. Nick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, methane produced from livestock alone is several times more damaging than the carbon produced from industry globally. In fact, globally again, over a quarter of greenhouse gas emissions are produced solely from livestock farming. Now, no one is going to suggest, aside from maybe the Greta gang, that farmers are exclusively responsible for damaging the planet with these harmful emissions. However, I personally believe that farmers should do their part to help reduce these emissions and save our planet. The land alone that's used by farmers for livestock could just as easily be used for carbon sequestration, whether it be rewilding, introducing new wetland and increasing biodiversity, or even going straight into forestry, which has been proven to be some of the most effective ways to reduce carbon within our atmosphere and thus lowering the global temperature. The Amazon rainforest is often referred to as the lungs of the planet. And over the past several decades, over a third of the rainforest has been cleared exclusively for livestock farming. So we have not only done one horrific evil by clearing this essential part of land for the health and well-being of our planet, but that we have then replaced it with a service which does even more damage than we are replacing it with. Within farming, we all understand in this room that it is hard to make a profit, and reducing livestock numbers would damage the income of a farm. There is no doubt about that. However, whether you love him or you hate him, Jeremy Clarkson has proven that diversification is not only possible within every farm, but is absolutely necessary for the survival in today's economy. So with all this in mind, I firmly believe that livestock numbers should be reduced in order to help save our planet. We only have one planet, and it's up to all of us, not just farmers, to look after it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Clearly you've learnt a thing or two from your father-in-law, or almost. I will now hand over to Chloe to oppose these arguments. Chloe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, should farmers reduce livestock numbers to help with the global issues? No, absolutely not. Livestock do not contribute in a major way to our global emissions. While livestock numbers have been falling dramatically over the last 20 years, the global warming issues have only been getting worse. This is all the while farmers are improving efficiencies on farm every single day through improvements in farming practices such as feeding and selective breeding to reduce the number of days to slaughter, therefore reducing the amount of methane and emissions released from livestock. Feed additives can also be used to reduce methane emissions. These are constantly being developed and improved to further help reduce the emissions from livestock production. For Scotland, much of the land, like my own farm at home, is less favoured area. Therefore, it's not fit for producing crops and the likes. It's only solely useful for livestock production. Livestock can be produced sustainably here to provide a key protein source for the population. The UK isn't self-sufficient in food. By reducing livestock numbers, this would cause even more pressure to our food security. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I firmly believe livestock numbers must not be reduced. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your views there, Chloe. I'll now give Nick a chance to reply to these comments. Nick.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chloe. Those were some excellent points raised. However, it's worth remembering there are no ends to the ideas and the developments that we've come up with to help reduce the methane emissions within ruminant agriculture. However, nothing comes close to simply removing the production of the methane, the actual animals themselves. So you can say all you want that, oh, I've got this new feed that lowers my emissions by 30% even. However, that's nothing compared to removing the beast itself and reducing by 100%. It's also worth mentioning, you talked about food security. Over a third of the food that we produce in the UK alone gets wasted. It goes straight into the rubbish. And whilst in there, it produces even more methane, which again leads on to killing the planet even more. So for these reasons, I still fully believe that the current best option we have and best contributor that farmers can bring to the table to reduce emissions is simply to reduce herd sizes. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Now let's really heat things up as we move on to our debate. During the debate, I ask that all panellists remain seated and all comments are to be directed through myself as chair. Chloe, I'm going to come to you first. Nick spoke about the intensive farming practices in South America, particularly in the Amazon rainforest. Do you think these intensive practices in South America are damaging to the climate?
Madam Chair, I do believe these practices are damaging to the climate. However, much of the world, like Scotland, are producing food sustainably. Therefore, this is one example. And the rainforest there is not only being chopped down for farming, it's for mining and a variety of reasons, not just for livestock production.
Thank you, Chloe. Nick, I'll give you a chance to respond to these comments.
Thank you. So you're absolutely right. There are a number of reasons that the rainforest gets knocked down. However, a vast majority of the land use that gets knocked down for is for livestock production. And you mentioned there about how the Amazon might be just a small corner of the actual industry. This is simply not true. Within Europe and especially Scotland, we have incredibly sustainable practices. However, this is not true globally. The US alone, a vast majority of these farms are indoor intensive, colossal numbers of livestock covering relatively small areas of land. So, and this again, this gets mirrored in the likes of Asia, where they don't have a lot of flat land to begin with, so they have to condense everything down with huge numbers just to push through the value that they need to produce. So It's all well and good saying that we're good here, we're absolutely fine in our little perfect corner of the world. However, we must emphasize that this is a global issue that requires a global solution from all farmers.
Chloe, do you have anything to come back to with that?
I agree with Nick's point. We must ensure that farmers globally practice sustainable farming methods like we do here in Scotland.
Thank you, Chloe. I'm going to come to you with another question. Nick touched on food waste here in the UK. Do you think we need a cultural shift to reduce food waste here and further in the world?
Absolutely, Madam Chair. In the UK, we waste far, far too much food. We are a wasting nation. Therefore, I think if we were to reduce this, it would do the country a lot of good.
Nick, any final comments there?
Yes, absolutely. So the food point, personally for myself, I think really hits home for absolutely everyone. It's not just an issue with farmers, but the produce that you slave over to be simply thrown out just because a date says that it's off. And the fact that it's stored so inefficiently in stores is, I think, catastrophic for the nation. And this must be a very high priority to be solved.
We will draw a close to the debate there. We now move on to the arbitration from Joanna. Joanna is 19 and the youngest member of the Aberfeldy Speechmaking team. She currently studies rural business management at Craibston up in Aberdeenshire. When she's not at college, she can be found playing with her horses or splitting up arguments between me and my sister, so I am sure she will pick a strong winner today. Joanna.
Thank you, Madam Chair. After hearing that today's debate was on the topic of farmers should reduce livestock numbers to help with the current climate crisis, I knew that my team members would each deliver a well-fired argument. Our proposer, Nick, started off today's debate demonstrating his knowledge, stating that greenhouse gases are largely caused by farmers. He then heated his point up, discussing that the land could instead be utilised for wildlife and biodiversity. Nick then furthered his argument, mentioning that we are sacrificing our planet for livestock to create more damage. Next, our opposer Chloe was keen to express her point that livestock do not cause a comparatively large effect. She then released fuel to the fire of her argument, stating that feed additives can be used to help the methane levels that are being released from livestock. Chloe then increased the heat, stating that the land has no other use than for livestock itself. Nick then took full use of his opportunity to respond, stating that there are no ways round the fact that livestock release methane regardless of the level. As we moved towards the debate, both the proposer and opposer were keen to seal their views. Chloe rounded off a well-warmed argument, discussing that the world are producing sustainable foods. There are land parcels available for this. Nick then countered Chloe's argument, stating that there are global impacts, such as indoor intensive farms. This is not using our land. After careful consideration, it's time to wrap today's debate up and to choose a winner. Both team members delivered strong arguments today, but Nick's point that we only have one planet really resonated with me and sealed his argument today. So therefore, I believe the stronger argument today was Nick. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna, for your arbitration. It was Nick who came out on top today. I'd just like to take this chance to thank our proposer, Nick, opposer, Chloe, and arbiter, Joanna, for their views today. To our judges, stewards, timekeepers, and of course you, the audience. So, will you be reducing your livestock numbers, or will you be helping fight the climate crisis in another way? I will leave you to think about that on your way home today. Thank you and good afternoon.